Spread a map of Asia in front of you, and you'll find dozens of cultures that never traded a single story, never shared a language, never worshipped the same gods. And yet, again and again, they invented monsters that were somehow afraid of the exact same things. This isn't a simple list of creatures. It's a pattern, and once you see it, you start to notice it everywhere. Start with the fear that appears more than any other across this continent. Something coming for the ones who can't protect themselves. In the Philippines, the Ikek waits until nightfall to shed its human disguise and become a black, vampiric bird hunting for unborn children, while its cousin the Aswang goes further still, taking the shape of a beautiful woman by day and unleashing a long blood-drawing tongue by night. The Manananggal takes this fear to its most unsettling extreme, detaching its torso entirely and flying off in search of pregnant women, leaving its legs behind until dawn forces it to rejoin. A vulnerability so specific that entire households once slept with salt and garlic lining their windows. Even the Tianak plays on this exact same nerve, disguising itself as a crying infant only to reveal claws and fangs the moment someone draws close enough to help. Half a continent away in ancient Mesopotamia, the same anxiety takes shape as a Saku, an invisible demon blamed for sudden illness in children too young to explain what was wrong. Different names, different coastlines, same nightmare. The thing that should be innocent isn't. Move inland into the forests and mountains, and the fear changes shape entirely. Not the home invaded, but the wild disrespected. Japan's Tengu, long-nosed and winged, guards mountain passes with sword skills, sharp enough to humble even skilled warriors who wander too far from the trail. The Kappa lurks in rivers and ponds, with a water-filled basin on its skull, mischievous until provoked, dangerous the moment it is. Korea's Dokebi haunt bridges and crossroads, elderly and clever, less interested in harming travelers than in outwitting them through riddles and games. Punishment reframed as a battle of wits rather than violence. And in the Philippines, the horse-headed Tikbalang leads lost hikers in circles through the forest, a folklore-shaped consequence for anyone who forgets that wilderness was never meant to be tamed. Across every one of these stories, the message holds steady. Step carelessly into nature's territory, and something is waiting to remind you whose ground you're actually standing on. Not every creature in this pattern exists to punish though, some exist to hold the line against the ones that do. The Naga, coiled and serpent-bodied across Hindu, Buddhist, and Southeast Asian belief, guards rivers and sacred treasures with a wisdom ancient enough to predate most kingdoms that worshipped it. The Lamassu once stood carved in stone at the gates of Mesopotamian palaces, bull-bodied and eagle-winged, less a threat than a promise of protection to anyone who passed beneath its gaze. Garuda, mount of the god Vishnu, plays eternal enemy to the serpent demons, a guardian whose entire mythology is built around the act of holding back chaos rather than causing it. Bali's Barong performs this same role in living tradition, locked in ceremonial combat against the witch queen Rangda in a dance still performed today, good and evil, refusing to let either side win permanently. Even the gentle Baku, dream-eating and elephant-headed, fits this same mold in miniature, devouring nightmares so people could sleep without inviting the very fears these other legends were built to explain. Then there's a fear entirely unlike the others, not danger, but its opposite, prosperity, and the terror of losing it. China's Pikshu, a horned, winged hybrid of lion and dragon, was believed to devour wealth and never release it, carved into charms and placed near doorways specifically because its appetite worked in your favor. The Qilin appears only during peace, a living sign that a ruler's virtue had been recognized by heaven itself, while the Longma, half dragon and half horse, was said to bring extraordinary fortune to whoever managed to find one. Even the elegant Kinari, half woman and half bird, embodies this softer register of belief, beauty, music and blessing rather than fang and claw. And finally, when no other explanation fit, entire cultures reached for the same solution. Blame something enormous and mostly invisible. Japan's Namazu, a giant catfish thrashing beneath the earth, was said to cause every earthquake that shook the islands, kept in check only by a god pressing a stone down upon it. The Gashadokuro, a colossal skeleton built from the accumulated bones of famine and war, rattled through the night as a walking monument to suffering too large for any single story to hold. Ifrit and Jinn, born from smokeless fire in Arabian tradition, carried both immense power and immense unpredictability, capable of granting wishes and twisting them in the same breath. Across an entire continent, disaster kept getting the same treatment, too big to explain plainly, so it got a name and a shape instead. A few creatures resist even this pattern, refusing to sit neatly in any single category. Japan's Kitsune shifts between trickster and guardian depending entirely on the story being told, its many tales marking centuries of accumulated wisdom that could just as easily protect a household as deceive one. The Oni carries pure punishment in its iron club and horned skull, less a character than a consequence given a body. The Ryu, dragon of Japanese water and weather, and China's Tianlong, celestial and rain-bringing, both prove that not every enormous scaled creature had to be feared. Some were simply trusted with forces too large for any single village to control. Persia offers perhaps the gentlest counterpoint of all in the Simurgh, a healing, wise bird believed to guide heroes rather than test them, its feathers said to carry the power to undo harm rather than cause it. And out past every documented tradition wait the ones science never quite dismissed nor confirmed. The Almas of Central Asia's mountains, the Yeti of the Himalayas, the Tsuchinoko of Japan's countryside, creatures that persist not because anyone can prove they're real, but because the alternative, that nothing at all waits in those remote, unmapped places, has never quite satisfied anyone standing at the edge of the wilderness alone. What's remarkable isn't any single creature on this list, it's how consistently unrelated cultures arrived at the same handful of fears and hopes translated into fur, scale, and flame depending entirely on where you happen to be standing. The predator hunting the vulnerable, the guardian of the wild, the protector at the gate, the hunger for fortune, the disaster too big to name, different mythologies, same human blueprint underneath, built independently by people who never once compared notes and somehow reached the same conclusions anyway. Maybe that's the real legend here, not any one monster, but the pattern connecting all of them, stretched across an entire continent and thousands of years, still recognizable the moment you know where to look. If tracing that pattern kept you hooked, stay a little longer, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which fear you'd want us to dig into next.